Madam Secretary, thank you for being here today to answer some of these critical questions. And Mr. Chairman, I noticed in your opening remarks you expressed frustration about the fact that administration officials are now saying, as you said, they didn't see the problems coming. And I share that frustration. There were plenty of warnings. And one, Madam Secretary, was a letter that I sent you back in August. This is a letter I sent to you and Director Tavener. And I sent it because I was hearing a lot from Ohio about problems with enrollment, and particularly problems from Ohio because they didn't believe that they were getting the answers they needed from you. So I asked a bunch of questions. I relayed the concern that Ohio didn't think there was even the minimal amount of coordination. I requested specifically, who in your agency is in charge? Who's the liaison with Ohio? I also expressed my concern about what I knew about the IT concerns, information technology problems that were already, as the chairman has said, pretty obvious, wondering whether those could be solved by October 1st. I asked whether you had tested the technology, specifically whether the systems were going to work and what were the results of that testing. I said I was concerned that there'd be a lot of confusion and disarray for Ohioans. Unfortunately, there has been. So didn't receive a response to the letter, and that August letter still remains unanswered, so I want to ask you today, who is in charge? Who's in charge of the Federal Exchange in Ohio at HHS? Who can I direct my constituents to as they have concerns and questions? Because I am trying to help them.
Well, I would say ultimately Administrator Tavener is oversees the agency.
So there's no one for Ohio?
Do we have an individual who's Ohio?
Who's accountable to the state of Ohio, to the Federal Exchange in Ohio?
We don't have an individual assigned per state, no, sir.
As you try to fix these sites, you talked earlier about how you think you shouldn't take down the site, which was a suggestion by the chairman and others. You said instead better to do routine upgrades while it's happening. Again, my question, are you testing the site? Are you testing the upgrades that you're using?
We are testing on a regular basis, and I can tell you...
Are you going to provide the results of that, the testing?
To you on a I don't know what you're asking for. Yeah.
To the American people, as you didn't with regard to the lack of transparency in setting up the site.
Sir, testing is going on every day on every piece of equipment that is being installed, on every coding that is being run, as we did with every piece of equipment that became part of the site. It was tested not only by the company and the contractor as it was presented to CMS. There was a CMS test that was performed, and then an independent verification test. So every piece of
Really? So all these problems
tested.
that we're all experiencing and talking about, those were a surprise to you because there was testing. Let me just continue because I got a short period of time here. A lot of stories, as you can imagine, from constituents. A guy calls in and says, I tried to get on for 2 weeks, finally get on, find out my coverage is double. A woman calls in who's having a tough time making ends meet. She's got a kid in college, can't get through, makes a telephone call, calls me 2 weeks later and says, I still haven't heard back from him. So those stories are out there. We're told 12 million people nationally are going to lose the coverage they have. And again, we've talked a lot about the promises that were made on that. How many Ohioans have had their insurance plan canceled? Do we know?
Sir, that's proprietary insurance information. I do not know.
So other states have provided that information. Will we know how many Ohioans have had their...
Sir, again, the federal government, these are private plans. Ohio companies could give you that information. But that isn't information that we have at the Department of Health and Human Services. These are private insurance companies notifying their customers.
We won't know how many people have...
Well, I think you could ask the Ohio insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a great way to get the answer. We don't collect that information.
Well, the Ohio insurance companies are canceling plans because the legislation that you're implementing doesn't permit these plans because they do not meet your mandate. So it would be helpful, I think, for you to know how many of these plans are being canceled and whether the promises...
If a customer is in a grandfathered plan, they have not received a notice. If the plan has been upgraded with consumer protections, they haven't received a notice. So I really don't...
You don't care about that data or aren't interested in it?
I care about the data, sir, but you asked if I could give you that answer. I can't tell you for Ohio.
Let me ask you a final question, and it's about covering the uninsured. We've talked about the promises on you can keep the coverage, the cost being less rather than more. we haven't talked about coverage. Is it true that after all this sound and fury and all this bureaucracy and 19 new taxes and over $1 trillion of new spending and so on, that still 30 million Americans 10 years from now, after full implementation of this, will not have health care insurance? Is that accurate?
I hope that's not the case.
You hope it's not, but you believe it's accurate?
I
That's what the
don't-
Congressional Budget Office tells us.
I understand, and frankly, I have no idea what their premise is. I think that that is unlikely to be true if the program can be fully realized, and that's my...
Do you have a number on that? How many people will remain uninsured?
No, I don't, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.